So I ran into a little problem with my mower today. I've got about a 10 or 11 year old Troy-Bilt lawn mower, self-propelled, that runs great. Has done a wonderful job for me, but as you can see, the body has cracked and the engine has fallen off, basically. It's not rusted out or anything like that. But the engine came loose, all three bolts that hold it on. And so I'm going to show you how to fix something like this today. Most people would run out and buy a new $300 or $400 lawnmower to replace this one. I think I paid about $370 for this one about 10, 11 years ago, like I said. And it's been a great mower, still runs great, and I'm not about to give it up, over something like this. So we're going to take a look at what I've done already. I went out to, actually already had from Lowe's a piece of straight strapping. Basically this is a thin steel, hardened steel strapping. You can buy it at Lowe's, Home Depot, or any of the hardware stores. It's maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick or so. It's good and solid. It won't flex or anything. And so the motor actually mounts on top of this ring. Kind of sits down in there like that. And then the bolts come up through the bottom of the body, and as you can see, I can take my finger and pull it right up through there, and it just popped right off while I was cutting the grass. So rather than replacing the mower or taking it down to the local lawnmower repair guy and paying him probably a couple $100 to fix it, fortunately my grandfather was a blacksmith, and spent a lot of hours watching him growing up, making tools and sharpening tools and doing all kinds of steel work. Not that this is anything like what he did, but I took this strapping, took a basic 4-inch grinder to it. I laid the strapping down. I had to take one piece first and get it matched up just right to the hole. And I grinded it down on the inside first to a curve to match where it was going to mount up. And then these little plastic things go down in these little holes here when the ring's flipped over. And then I used a pencil to trace around the outside so that it would not be any larger than the ring itself, because as you can see there's an indentation up underneath of this lip, and it has to fit up inside of there. So then I simply duplicated that and made 3 of them, one for each hole. Now one of the keys to this is that a couple of these are not exactly the same. As if you'll notice from the hole, this little peg's on the left, but on this hole, the little peg's on the right. So I numbered, as you can see there's a number 2 there, and I put a little number 2, kind of hard to see there with the pencil, but number 2 on there, so I'd know which one was matched up where, and have all 3 of them labeled and ready to put back on. And we're going to mount the motor back on here now, and I'll be back shortly and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Well, now that I've peeled away a couple extra layers, I'm going to show you why it's important to do some regular maintenance to your lawn equipment. As you can see, on my engine, I've got a bolt that's missing out of the gas tank. It's just one of the mounting bolts, no big deal, but it's just vibrated loose and come out of there. While I was mowing today, also this little piece popped off, just a couple of screws, no big deal. This is a little bit more important. This is the drivetrain where the belt runs the self-propelled, and as you can see there's a bolt broken off and missing there, and also down here there's a spring that's broken. I'm not quite sure what that spring is for yet. I'm going to have to look at that and see if I can figure out what that's missing from when it goes to. But that would explain why the self-propelled mechanism hasn't been working as good. I thought the belt was just probably getting worn out or a little loose. We'll see what we can do with that, and I'll update excuse me, I'll update you very shortly. Okay, well, I found where the little spring is supposed to hook. If I flip over the tensioning mechanism, you'll see a small loop here, and this spring, in all likelihood, had a very long end on it, and it hooked on right here. And what it did was it helped keep the belt tight, help keep the tensioner tight. So I'm gonna have to see what I can do with that. Don't know if I'll be able to find a replacement or not, but I'm gonna run out to Lowe's or Home Depot and see if I can find anything, and we'll see, because I think that's going to be important to the drivetrain, and see if we can get that fixed as well. And when this thing's done, she ought to run like new. Okay, so after taking a little closer look at the spring, deciding what my options are, I decided I might not be able to find a replacement for this very easily without having to make something myself anyway. So I took the pliers, and you see I fashioned the other end. The spring's still very solid anyway. What causes it to break is when they put a long extender, straight extender, wiggles back and forth, tends to just snap off, just like if you bend a piece of wire back and forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that spring back on there, and I'm going to use some thin baling wire to make that extension with. I'll probably put 2 or 3 wraps on it, twist it, tighten it up real good, make it good and strong, and we'll see if it holds. I'm sure it will, and probably be a lot stronger than it was from the factory. One more important thing: when you're putting something back together, it's important to pay close attention to which way you put a spring on. Your first natural instinct would be to hook the spring on this way. However, that gives it more of a propensity to be able to pop off. So you always want to think about this, and you'll see I'll hook the spring in this way, and that way it has nowhere to go because its tension is back the opposite direction. So there you see it. Pay close attention to those little details, and that'll save you a lot of headache down the road as well. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the spring hooked. Took the baling wire, I ran about 3 loops, and kind of sewed it back and forth between the end of the spring and the catch. And then your first instinct to tighten something that's like this up is to take the 2 ends and then twist them together and let it draw everything up. Problem is that it broke, just like the first spring did. So a little bit different approach. If you can tell, I took, once I laced it through about 3 times, I took this end, coiled it around with the needle nose pliers, tightened it down real good on this end, did the same thing on this end. So I think that's going to hold nicely. Definitely going to be stronger than the first rendition of my repair, and definitely going to be stronger than the manufacturer's spring that was on there, obviously. So now I've got my drivetrain put back together, got the spring secured underneath that will give this some tension and let it be able to pull on the belt and keep it tight. Also replace the missing bolt. There's a nut underneath holding that on, so it's good and secure now. And about to put the motor back on, see if I can get those brackets I fashioned up underneath and bolted in tight and hold the motor on good. And we'll be back shortly to show you the progress. Okay, this is the swivel rod up under here that engages to start the engine and the drivetrain. And as you can see, the piece of the handle here broke off a long time ago. I think it got caught on a fence or something. It's kind of a poor design because it's supposed to cover this and hold that rod in. And the problem I was having with this rod was sliding in and out and handle falling off. So fashioned a little clip out of a piece of strapping and screwed it on there. I did the same thing on the other side just to be safe, make sure it stays in tight. I'll show you another couple small repairs I had to do. Had a bolt missing out of my muffler holder, and also had a bolt missing out of the muffler guard here. It was actually never even put in from the factory, so a little bit of poor work there, but she's all back together. You can see solid as a rock, and going to get started up and get some grass cut now. So here's the finished product. Mower's completely fixed. Everything's mounted. Motor's tight and secure. Everything's bolted up underneath. I showed you the pictures of that earlier. Running good. Just finished cutting my grass, and it came a downpour right afterwards, as you can see. A couple more pieces of advice: repairing a lawnmower. Change your air filter as well. This one I don't think I'd ever changed. Mower's about 10-11 years old, and as you can see, the thing I changed was the Drivetrain on the self-propelled mechanism. And as you can see here, there is a part number on there, and it says MTD 754-0465. Lowe's did not have a replacement for it where I bought the mower, and that's the case a lot of times when these things are 5-10 years old and you can't find a replacement belt. So I went over to Home Depot. I went to the next place, found one identical to it, same size, everything, different part number, but it worked good. A couple things you want to look at is the width of the belt, the depth of the belt, as well as the angle of the side of the belt, because it has to fit down in that pulley. If it's too wide or too narrow, it's going to wear out real quick on you. It's going to shred and break. This one was already starting to crack on the inside, so while I had everything apart, I think there, yeah, you can see it was a cracking. Probably would have broke before too long. So I went ahead and replaced it while I was working on everything else. Instead of having a new $400 lawnmower, I got a $370 lawnmower that hopefully lasts me a few more years.